Welcome to Technado.
Welcome to another episode of Technado. As a reminder, Technado is sponsored by ACI Learning, the people behind IT Pro. If you want a discount on your IT Pro membership, you can use that code Technado30. I'm one of your three hosts for the show, Sophie Goodwin. Hope everybody had a lovely Labor Day / holiday / long weekend. Don, how was your Labor Day?
It was good. You know, we had the hurricane blow through, which I think all three of us made out pretty well with that. The hurricane kind of went north of us, but it meant we get to spend a little time doing yard cleaning and all of that mess. But all in all, nice to relax. The tech news, man, this was one of those weeks where I had a hard time filtering us down to just 6 articles. There were so many things going on. So we've got some fun ones for today.
Okay, it's a good problem to have, because otherwise we end up covering I bought a new laptop, and that's the new tech news, right?
Yeah.
How about
let's go over GitHub repository changes.
Yeah. I'm glad. We had too much information. We had to filter it down. It's a good problem
What's
to have.
in your commits?
How was your Labor Day / hurricane weekend,
Oh,
Daniel?
hurricane was great.
Yeah? Had a good time?
Yeah.
10 out of 10 would do again.
Oh, man.
Daniel likes chaos and
5
destruction.
stars. 5 stars. I do like chaos a little bit, so it's kind of fun. Kids, it got real windy, so kids were just outside playing in the wind.
Yeah, just let him blow away. You got 3. You can lose
I was
one.
like, man, he's got a motor on him. Doesn't even look at him go.
It's fine. You
Probably go get that one.
can keep 66% of your kids. It's fine.
Yeah.
If one of them blows away, no big deal. Well, like Don said, we do have plenty of tech news this week, so we did filter it down just to 6, but we're going to go ahead and start getting through those. This first article comes to us from the Register. It says Microsoft makes some certification exams open book, so just some. But what they said was that realistically, you're going to look stuff up anyway, so you might as well learn how to do it right. And I have heard this for some of these exams where even if it's open book and you have access to the material, there's so much material that it's a skill in and of itself to be able to find what you're looking for within whatever book it is that you're using.
Yeah, so on its face, it sounds like a really good thing, but this is the equivalent of going up to somebody and saying, "Oh, you look hungry. Here, I brought you a glass of water." That's effectively what Microsoft is doing. So this is really I don't have the right word for this. Not a Trojan horse, but where it seems like a good gift, but it actually isn't.
Oh,
that
would be a Trojan horse.
All right.
Yeah.
So
it would fall under that, I think.
So
The Venn diagram, yeah.
What Microsoft is doing is something interesting that we've seen in universities for years, where they have, hey, here's your exam, and it's open book. You can take your book in with you and use it. But most people recognize that book is a bit of a red herring, that if you go for it, you're going to run out of time. Microsoft is allowing access to certain documentation and not increasing the amount of time on the exam. So it is really neat to hear it, though. Like Sophie said, you're going to look stuff up anyway. That's how people work in real life, right? But how are you going to look it up? Sophie, if you don't know how to do something, what's the first resource you go to?
So generally, first I just Google what I need to do, and then if I can't find anything, I ask Nate.
It's good to have an IT department behind you.
Yes.
But you Google things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. Daniel, what did you don't like Google? So what's your?
No, I use Google. I don't like Google, the company. Their search engine does a pretty good job of getting things that I need. Other search engines as well, DuckDuckGo and the Brave, and there's just plenty of them out there to fill around with. So I like getting varied sources because you never know what you're going to find on the other stuff. But you kind of go to, let's put it this way. You go to the interwebs and you ask the oracle of the internet, what is this? And it goes here. And now we have, I've kind of used a bit of AI technologies nowadays for some help on stuff because it can easily define things for you or, pull information.
And in the real world, those are resources you have access to, right?
Yep.
On the Microsoft exam, what they're giving you is a pop-out tab that comes in from the side of the screen, and it gives you access to only the learn.microsoft.com domain, right? Not Microsoft knowledge base articles and things like that, just learn.microsoft.com.
Is it in a browser?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It's a browser, but it's heavily restricted just to that one domain.
Gotcha.
And no search engine. So, Cisco did this forever ago, like 20 years ago, where on their exams, you would have access to I forget what the Cisco website was called back then. It had a different name, but the Cisco documentation website. And without a search engine, you had to memorize the paths to get to information. So you just immediately knew the 5 clicks to get to wherever it was. And if you got the time to memorize that, just memorize the data, so you don't have to do a search. It doesn't make any sense. And Microsoft's documentation, when's the last time either of you said, oh, I wonder how to do this. I'm going to go to learn.microsoft.com.
Oh, that's the worst. It was absolutely like, I'm not saying that the information's not in there. It absolutely is. It's just really difficult to kind of like sift through that knowledge base and find the actual thing you're looking for. It's not very easy.
It's not real intuitive.
No.
Yep. So here's my advice on this one. First off, if you are looking to take Microsoft exams, the exam hasn't changed. So that's good, right? So you can use this or you can ignore it. Makes no difference. The amount of time you get, the amount of questions you get, none of that has changed. So that's a positive. If you're thinking of relying on this on the exam, not a good idea, right? So if you don't study and you just go in and try and take the exam relying on this source of information, you will absolutely run out of time. There's just not enough time.
This is just false hope they're giving people.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
So here's the way to use it successfully. Don't use it for your first pass. Go through all the questions, answer everything you can. And a lot of times, we'll mark questions for review. We'll say, I'm going to come back and look at this one again. If there's any question you're uncertain of, finish all the other questions and then come back and use the documentation at the end. And that way, at least if you run out of time, you ran out of time on questions you didn't know the answer on, but you did answer the ones that you already knew. So save it for the end of the exam. That's my advice.
It's just starting to anger me now because I'm thinking like, you've given me a tool that I think, oh, this is going to be so good. I'm going to have a lot higher confidence going into the exam booth. And all of a sudden I'm going to realize, oh, this is not as easy as it. And I'll probably walk in there and I might even fail thinking that I'll be able to get to this really easily. I'll know where that is. And you know how it is. You get in there and you're just like, holy crap, where is that again? And then you're running down rabbit holes and you think, oh, I can go find, I know it's over here in this section. Where the heck is this? Where? Oh goodness, I'm, and then you get flustered and now your confidence is sunk to the basement.
Yeah.
And it might actually end up in more fail rates than passes, honestly.
So I have a positive and a cynical way of looking at this, right? So the positive way is, look, this is like real life. In real life, you have access to documentation. Let's make the exam that same way.
But not like this.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a step in
what I would like to see. So I think it's the GIAC GSEC certification. They allow you to bring in as many books as you can carry under one arm or something, or any resources. You can write notes and you can bring that in as well. If I'm remembering correctly. That is a much better open book model in my estimation, because I can make my own notes, I can highlight, I can tab stuff. And then when I need to get access to that knowledge, oh, there it is. Right.
You can
I've
do
got
it in
it
a way
all
that
mapped out. Right.
you know that that's the way that works for you.
Right. Not some crazy, search base that I have to use through a janked up browser. And
Now, let me give you the cynical take on this. If you've taken a Microsoft exam recently, there's a lot of people out there that are, I don't want to say complaining, they are voicing their opinion that there are questions on the exam that are not covered in the exam objectives, or questions in the exam that are not covered in the official Microsoft courses that offer training for it.
That's what they're called objectives for.
Yeah.
Like, I'm being kind of an a-hole here. What I mean is, like, that's always been the case. I've always encountered that.
So the cynical take on this is Microsoft is exposing that documentation to basically kill that argument of, all right, hey, there might be a question that's outside of what was in the objectives, but you've got access to all the documentation, right? This kind of nixes that argument. So we'll see. They are rolling this out for all of their role-based certifications. So if you're doing Microsoft 365, the desktop administrator, Azure administrator, all of those exams, they're rolling this out. It'll be rolled out this month, so in September of 2023. They are not rolling this out for foundation exams. Fundamental exams. So if you're doing any of their like Azure fundamentals or security fundamentals, those exams are not getting access to it. But those are the easy exams. So so they're rolling it out for the hard exams, and it's an extra resource to have.
Better than nothing, I guess. Just I kind of like the way you put it is don't think this is going to be some magic bullet to a pass for you. Don't lean on it too hard. Think of it as a resource. Use it as well as you can, but don't spend too much time thinking this is going to be your holy grail that is going to save you as you get into the exam booth.
Right. Anytime I've had a textbook or something as a source for an exam that I'm taking, it's more about memorizing where things are in the textbook, like the table of contents and how to get there and where the index is and whatever. Because once you get into the exam, maybe it's too much information for me to memorize, but I can at least know where in the book to find it so that it's if I'm using the book, it's easier for me to get there. I'm not spending all my time flipping through every single page looking for that particular word or, buzzword or whatever. So it's a skill. It's a skill in and of itself, I think. It'll be interesting to see how this pans out for people taking those exams. So it's mid-September that it'll be rolling out. So after that, maybe we'll start to see some reviews come out as to how that tool works. Okay, interesting. Positive and cynical review. I like when we get to see both sides of things. Thank you for that. So we'll go ahead and move on. We've got another article here from Tom's Hardware. It says, yes, a Pigeon is faster for data transfer than gigabit fiber internet. So I guess they did an experiment to see if a Pigeon with 3 terabytes of flash drives could outrun gigabit ISP transfers, and it could, evidently, or outfly, I guess.
This little exercise was performed by Jeff Geerling. If you ever built like a Raspberry Pi cluster, he does tons of YouTube videos on those. So he did a little experiment, and this is revisiting an experiment that was done years ago. You'll hear about these, like Internet over Carrier Pigeon or other media. In this case, what he's demonstrating is something that was kind of been known for a long time, that sometimes it is faster to ship media than it is to try and transfer over an ISP. In his case, he had a gigabit internet connection with his ISP, but he was only getting a 75 megabit sustained transfer rate. So, it shows a lot of us have gigabit internet.
That is not gigabit.
And I mean, maybe you get it in bursts.
Yeah.
But sustained over the hours or whatever it took to transfer this data, he was only getting 75 megabit. Or
Interesting.
megabyte.
Now,
I don't remember how I measured it.
Would you say that, yes, it may be faster to ship it or send it by carrier pigeon, as in the case may be, but the convenience of just hitting upload or download or whatever kind of outweighs that con of the lower speed?
So it can.
Yeah.
However, I can give you a great example because we just went through this in our day job.
Yeah.
We have 2 data centers, one over in the UK and one here in the US. And we needed to transfer about 55 terabytes of data from one to the other. All right. 55 terabytes, it's a decent amount of data. It's not petabytes, right? But to transfer it over a gig connection would take days.
2 years.
Yeah, it would take a while. Not to mention the fact that we need those internet connection, that bandwidth for other tasks, not just transferring this data. So for us, it was literally faster to break that up across, I think we split it over 5 or 6 14 terabyte hard drives.
And just ship it.
And just FedExed it.
Yeah.
And it got there overnight. And then we loaded into the systems and went from there. So, and much more reliable. You don't have to worry about like interrupted transfers and variable bandwidth and so on. So, but I mentioned this is not a new concept. This ties back to a saying from the 70s. It came out of NASA. And Daniel, I imagine you've heard this one. Sophie, you probably haven't, which is, never underestimate the bandwidth of a station wagon full of tapes hurtling down the highway. And it came out of NASA, and what they found was back in the 70s when you had modems that were transferring over phone line, which was incredibly slow, that they could load their magnetic reels or magnetic tape into a station wagon and drive it 300 miles faster.
3 megabytes of data.
Probably
took up a whole station wagon.
Probably true. But that saying has been around a long, long time, and it's still true today, right? As media continues to grow in the amount of data it can store, like you can go and get a 20 terabyte hard drive at the regular store right now.
That's true.
And so, shipping that through a shipping service or
I could probably run down to the Dollar General and buy a hard drive that of some significant size.
Yeah.
Right? If I needed to.
Do they sell computer parts there?
I know they sell flash drives.
Oh,
and
all
they
right.
might sell external hard drives as well, like USB hard drives.
Oh, I'm curious.
Yeah. What is the Dollar General? Which is, for our non-US based listeners here, is a budget-friendly like general store that you can buy groceries and plates and you name it. It's got
Coloring
like
books.
a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. Yep. I'm going on the Dollar General website to see.
Yeah. I want to know. Can Daniel go to the Dollar General right now and buy an external hard drive?
So I searched for flash drive.
Yeah.
And I did get a PNY USB flash drive, 32 gigs.
Okay.
Not very big.
Great. Yeah.
$12, good price.
$12, yeah.
I also got Old Spice high endurance putty hairstyling for men.
Shoot. Give me 2 of each, baby.
Not sure how those are related.
I mean, I'm not going to use it for myself, but
It's
for my beard. It's for my beard.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, point is, things are still true. It's neat to see people testing this stuff out. I don't know how reliable pigeons are, but sometimes it is faster to drive your data somewhere than to transfer it over your internet
It's just
connection.
a crazy concept to think about in this day and age that I would hook a flash drive to a carrier pigeon. And man, that was some smoking fast.
Where do you even find a carrier pigeon? Like,
People still do it. Like they have races and everything. Like it's like a thing.
all right.
Yeah.
I think
It's not a big thing, but it's a
No.
thing.
But it's
it's a niche market.
Yes. Yes.
I think it's funny. It wasn't enough for him to just compare the pigeon to the internet. He threw himself in there. He put on a pigeon mask
Yeah.
and jumped on a plane to fly 3 terabytes of files. So he wanted to enter the race as well. And I think he also beat out internet speeds up to, I think, 5,000 miles, and then the internet
but
won
the
out.
cost associated with doing that.
He called himself Pidgeff. That was his pigeon name, was Pidgeff. So I just...
Did they let him on the plane, or was a TSA
That's-
agent with a rubber glove waiting for him?
I don't know. It looks like he was successful. Just think that's the unsung hero of this
You at
article is
Walmart?
Pidgeff.
Yeah.
I see. You're at Walmart.
Yeah, I gave up on Dollar General. I don't think they had
Yeah.
hard drives. So I went to Walmart. I figured
Okay.
that's a pretty
Yeah.
good standard. And I'm trying to find that they don't have where I can sort by size. So far the biggest I've seen is a 6 terabyte drive. But you know, the fact, here's 12 terabyte. So I could run down to the store
Booyah.
right now and get a 12 terabyte drive.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. So if you're in the market for a 12 terabyte drive and you live near a Wally World, now you have the prices.
That's right.
And pigeons beat the internet. And that's our news for the day.
There we go.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm just really happy to know that he was able to don a pigeon mask and fly across the states that way. That's my next life goal. I'm adding that to the bucket list.
I was on a flight with a guy one time, had a onesie on for the like Pittsburgh Steelers, and slept like a baby.
Nobody
All right.
questions you, though. In the airport and on the plane, you can wear whatever you want. You can be drinking a Sprite at 7 in the morning, and nobody's going to care because time's not real there. It just,
But
nobody
he wore
cares.
that onesie in the airport. It's not like he
Right.
got on the plane and put it on. Like,
Right.
He was waltzing through the airport with like little footy pajamas.
Maybe he lost a bet.
Yeah. Good for him for seeing it through.
You're
right?
so focused on your gate that's changed 3 times, you don't even see the guy in the
That's right.
Steelers onesie walking
That's
past
right.
you. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and move on from pigeons and Pidgeff and planes and things. We've got another article here, some more news in Microsoft. This comes to us from TechRadar. It says Microsoft pulls the plug on WordPad. So Microsoft's WordPad is being deprecated, it sounds like, and this is a pretty big deal, right?
It is. I did not see this coming, and I probably should have, because a few months ago we did an episode of Technado where we reported on Microsoft killing off the native mail client in Windows. And they said that instead of the native mail client, you should just use Outlook. And they were going to start giving Outlook away for free. That was, I think, what we announced. They were decoupling that from Office. Doing the same thing with Microsoft Teams and a few of their other products. Well, what I didn't think about was how tightly integrated WordPad and the native email client were. And I went down a whole rabbit hole of this weekend because somebody was trying to guess why Microsoft was doing this. And they said, I think that it is maybe a security issue. Here's this old software. Nobody uses it. Why keep it around? And I thought, how can this be a security issue? Here's a software that's not running all the time. It's not like a service running in the background. I don't see a security angle here. But if you go into the history of WordPad, like I've asked that question before, why do we have Notepad and WordPad, and Microsoft sells numerous other ways of doing text editing? Like, why do you have these different ones?
WordPad does things like RTF files, right?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And the reason is Microsoft never actually set out to create WordPad. They never set out to create Notepad. They were the result of other things. So in early versions of Windows, you needed a way to edit INI files. And back in the day, the INI files are still there. You can find system.ini, win.ini. All your drivers have those INF files. They needed a simple text editor for that. And so they made a simple text editor, and then they said, let's stick a few pretty controls on it, and now it's Notepad. So we have to create it anyway.
This is Notepad or WordPad?
That's Notepad.
Okay.
With WordPad, it was for the email client.
Really?
For the email client, they needed a WYSIWYG editor for emails. What you see is what you get. So that you could bold things, do a large font, change the fonts. They needed rich text formatting for the email client. And once they built the controls for that, they said, well, why not just make it standalone also? Now people get a cheap...
Use it for a bunch of other stuff as well.
Yeah. And that's what they did. So it came from the email client. So when we covered it a few months ago and said, hey, they're getting rid of the native email client in Windows, it didn't occur to me, wait a minute, here's these other things that are tied
These
to
things
that.
are married together, and once you've gotten rid of one, now it's time to like, well, I guess we get rid of the other as well. No reason to support it anymore.
Yeah, because I'm certain there's some people that buy a new computer and they say, I need a word processor and, oh, WordPad, good enough.
Yeah.
And that's it. And they stick with it and they just use it. Why would they buy Microsoft Word? Microsoft wants you to buy Microsoft Word.
They really do.
So I think they've been wanting to get rid of this for a while. And here's their opportunity. But yeah, it's a mainstay application that's been a part of Windows for a long, long time. And it's going away.
You said that. They've been wanting to get rid of this for a while. Now their opportunity has arisen. They've removed all its support infrastructure. And now it's out there all by itself in the wind.
Yeah.
Now it's gone.
Yeah.
You gonna miss it, Don? You gonna pour one out for the homie? And
you know, I'm not. And there's a few reasons for that. So like if I'm actually going to write a letter, I do have Microsoft Word, right? I have we did the family subscription where for $100 a year you get 5 seats. So my whole family has access to the whole Office suite, and
you're good to go.
Yeah, and
everything's all cloud based now, right? So
yeah. That's the drive. They want that software as a service. You've got to get people paying a recurring revenue.
Listen, Don, damn this one-time fee business. I want steady streams of income.
Yeah.
Over time.
And follow-up income. So, you bought Microsoft Windows or you bought a laptop. And we already made money on that license. How do we continue to make money? That's what businesses do today.
Man. LibreOffice is looking better every day.
That's a viable alternative. And for most people,
it'll do all the things you need it to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I do use Microsoft Word from time to time, but I don't think I've ever used WordPad in my life, which probably dates me a little bit. I do use Notepad sometimes, which is it's mainly just for text files, right?
Yep.
And so if I need to just write something down real quick, I'll use that. But more than that, I use Google Docs a lot, which I guess would be like a third-party alternative in this case because it's free. I already have a Gmail account.
Yeah.
So I use that a ton before I would use something like WordPad.
It's not free.
Okay, free as in no American dollars leave my wallets to use it.
Changes
yes.
hands,
but they know my mother's maiden name.
Yes.
And all the other good stuff.
And
so yeah.
when you go to the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that is a good point, though. Like Google Docs is fully featured and free.
Mm-hmm.
So, how is Microsoft going to compete? I mean, obviously, Microsoft's doing just fine. I don't feel bad for them. But
what was them, Don? How are they going to survive this?
I guess the only thing would be is that I do access it through a browser. It's not like it's a desktop app. So if I don't have internet, then I'm kind of screwed. But because I usually do have internet access, it's not really a problem for me.
That is true.
Yeah. I don't know. So I think it's a decent alternative. I'm sure there are other third-party alternatives out there too that people probably use. But
they used to have an offline Google Docs.
Maybe they do.
I don't know if they still do.
Maybe they do, and I just didn't know.
Like an installable.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you had to run Chrome.
Yeah,
because they made it for the Chromebooks.
It's like a Chrome extension or something.
Yeah, and so you could actually use your Google Docs and stuff offline.
And then as soon as you hooked up, it synced up, and you were good.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yep.
Learn something new every day, don't you?
Yeah,
I always do. I always do.
And I'm looking, and they do still support it in Microsoft Edge as well as Chrome. And you do need the Google Docs offline Chrome extension, but once you install that, it will work offline.
Oh,
lives
look at that.
Have been changed here on the Technado.
You did. I cry. You changed my life.
What's important is that Google will be able to harvest your.
I mean, to be honest, they're still doing that anyway, right? When you're offline, the browser still continues to like take telemetry data from your device.
Yeah, I mean,
and then once it connects, it goes, oh, here you go.
In theory, if you're running Edge, though, Google wouldn't get it. But once you're running their Google Docs offline Chrome extension, they will.
Yes. Well, good. Now I know. I do learn something new in this office every single day. So
every single day.
Appreciate you guys for that. We are going to take a short break so that I can install that Chrome extension and start working on my Google Docs offline. But don't worry, we'll be right back with more security news here on Technado. Tired of trying to schedule your team's time around in-person learning? Isn't it a bummer to spend thousands of dollars on travel for professional development? What if we said you can save money and time and still provide your team with the best training possible? The answer to your woes is live online training from ACI Learning. With live online training, we provide our top in-person courses in private, online, instructor-led formats. You get to provide professional development in a manner that fits today's expectations. Entertaining, convenient, and effective. Our exam-aligned courses inspire the full potential of your team. Visit virtual instructor-led training at ACI Learning for more info. Welcome back for more Technado. We're going to be jumping into some security articles in this half of the show, so we'll go ahead and jump right in because I'm excited about this one. This one comes to us from Bloomberg. It says FBI dismantles a malware system that took millions in ransom. So this malware system was called Quackbot. Is that right?
We were debating that just a moment ago. I think it is Quackbot.
Okay, that's
that is
fun.
an accepted derivation of Qakbot. Because I think most people see it and go, "Oh, Quackbot." Yeah. You're like, well, yeah, but no, and then whatever. Yeah, Quackbot's fine.
Whatever.
Go ahead.
Huh. So they're responsible. It was a network of hack devices responsible for extorting tens of millions of dollars from victims around the world. So they did take it down, but not before it could do quite a bit of damage.
Yeah, this is one of those bittersweet type things. Like, I love it when we see our government agencies taking action. When the FBI and other agencies get out there and close down some ransomware group or take down some hackers, that shows me that this isn't a battle that we're just losing on a regular basis, right? Although it can be a little disheartening to see things like Quackbot, this group formed in 2008. 15 years ago. So this is the slow hand of justice, to say the least. But, they started as a company doing cyber attacks, trying to hack into companies the old-fashioned way, but they evolved over time until today, where they're basically just a straight-up ransomware gang. They've extorted people for millions of dollars. They've hit sheriff's departments. They've hit hospitals. They've hit a number of, they're indiscriminate. They just hit whoever they can. And the FBI was finally able to seize their control servers and shut down their network. No word on whether any individuals were arrested. Like they've dismantled the network, they've shut that down, but they don't have anybody ready to go to court.
I think Qakbot is out of China, so
that's not going to happen. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Invade the mainland of China to go get them, or if they were dumb enough to land on U.S. soil or some country with extradition.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we don't have any extradition agreement with China, do we?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. So, kudos to them. Excellent work shutting down.
I will say, if you read through how they did this, very brilliant. I mean, it makes you go, hey, we do have some pretty smart folks that are looking out for our behalf and are out there actively attempting to take down these horrible networks. If you're not familiar with Qakbot, Qakbot is it's used for initial access. And then from there, and I think it started off as like a banking Trojan. And I think it still does that to a heavy extent. But if you were an attacker and you needed access to, I don't know, like systems, you could go to Qakbot. Cool. Now I can use Qakbot to get that access. And now I can install my ransomware. I can do whatever else I feel necessary to do. So it's typically how Qakbot gets used. And then when I said it was brilliant, the way they took it down was they were able to, I think they got a subpoena for the ISP or the hosting service that was running the Qakbot servers. And from there, they were able to get another subpoena that said, or a warrant, I guess the right word is, they got a warrant that said, hosting service, you must stand up a copy of all their servers and then give us as the FBI access to said servers, right? And then start redirecting traffic, and you can't tell your client that we're doing this. Right? They were gag ordered from telling them. And then once you started funneling access from the actual Qakbot servers to the FBI fake Qakbot servers, they were then able to upload to the infected machines an uninstaller and a system to keep it from getting reinstalled. And they were able to like man in the middle their encryption keys and all sorts of crazy stuff. And from there, basically dismantle the entire thing within a very short period of time, so they didn't have a lot of time to react to it. It was a very core. This is kind of some badass stuff that our good hackers were involved with doing. So it's really cool. And if you're thinking about cybersecurity and like what does that look like on a day-to-day basis, this is kind of the cool stuff that they get to do on a day-to-day basis, because it's not every day that we get to kind of hack back and go after them. But when we get the opportunity to, it's really cool to see it in real life land and how they took that down.
While you're explaining that, I'm trying to find out which ISP it was.
Oh, it's unnamed.
Okay, yeah, I have not been able to find it.
They're not saying which hosting service they were on.
Okay, so there are some hosting services that are out there that it's pretty obvious that they are very willing to support malicious actors, and they're building their ISP to support that because they know they can make some money on it.
Yeah.
But there's others where they just maybe didn't have a good handle on what their customers were doing, and you get that with Amazon a lot, where there may be hackers that are using resources in AWS. It's not that Amazon wants to support that activity; it's that it's hard to monitor and catch it. So I'm curious if we'll ever find out who that ISP is, to learn if it was somebody who was like a malicious ISP, in which case
they were just didn't know they were hosting Qakbot.
Yeah. It's possible. I like to try and think positive on this and assume that it was inadvertent hosting.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah,
because don't be a jerk, everyone. I hate that I have to say that, but apparently some kids were not raised that way and are absolutely jerks.
I feel like we've had that conversation here before about like I shouldn't have to tell you not to do
kill
this
people.
evil thing.
Yeah.
For some reason, I do have to make that clarification. Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it is. It's a little weird. Yeah. But that's the cynical take, I guess. Is there a positive take to this story? The bad guy got taken down.
I mean,
at least
tomorrow
for now.
we'll be reading an article about Barkbot or Oinkbot or whatever the hell
Yeah.
that they shifted to, because they're not going to. They've taken millions. I guarantee they got another set of infrastructure that they're just going to kind of fail over to and rename everything and kind of regenerate code, and they'll be back.
They're just going to work their way
They'll
through
be
the
back,
the farm animal noises.
Yeah.
Just keep renaming
that's
their
how it'll go.
network.
Yeah.
Okay. Moobot is up next.
Moobot.
Moo.
That sounds like something else.
Fine.
Moobs.
Oops. Great. I was thinking Mubi, the restaurant from.
Yeah, Mooby.
Yeah. Anyhow.
I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said that.
You opened Pandora's box.
Yeah, that's my fault. I take full responsibility. I'm sorry. I'll accept any hate comments that you want to give me for that. I also think it's interesting, and I feel like I've said this before about an article we've talked about weeks ago, but when they talk about these takedowns, there's always this caveat of like, well, this is great, but it doesn't necessarily mean they won't be back, kind of like you were just saying. And it kind of reminds me of like the mob, like the mafia, how it's like you can put these guys in jail, but it's still
somebody just takes their
the
place.
network still is going.
Yeah.
It still keeps operating. So it's great to take some of these guys down and kind of maybe disrupt the operation a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's gone forever. So that's kind of sad.
Mm.
I guess that's a little bit of a depressing way to look at it. But for now, yay! Good job, FBI. You did great. The FBI's on a roll lately. What did we talk about last week? They released some warning for people about what was it we talked about last week? Some warning that the FBI released, and you were like, if the FBI has to tell you to do something.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was that they warned about.
What were they warning about?
Oh, so clearly it wasn't very effective.
the warning is.
Yeah, it was a really good job there.
They didn't do a very good job. Great job,
You're
FBI.
useless.
I'm gonna have an agent show up at my door later because I'm talking crap about the
You
FBI.
act like that wasn't going to happen anyway.
I'm on several watch lists.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. My mom's gonna watch this and be like, "Stop saying that."
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and move on before I get myself in trouble. This next article comes to us from TechCrunch. It says LogicMonitor customers hit by hackers because of default passwords. I don't know. Could this have been a who got pwned or not quite under that category?
I think it probably should fall into that, but it's weird. So what happened here is, first off, if you don't know LogicMonitor, I didn't either prior to this, so it was the first time I'd heard of them. Yeah. So LogicMonitor, they provide the ability for you to monitor your network performance as well as your application performance, and even correlate that so that you can see what's going on with your application and your network all in one pane of glass. It's actually, I started looking into it. It's a pretty sweet product. Like it looks really impressive, and at least in their marketing materials, it certainly seems to do a good job delivering on that.
And we're not sitting here talking about like there was an inherent flaw in the software which caused a breach. It was just not really the wisest decisions when it came to issuing passwords, if I'm not mistaken.
So what they did is when a new customer would onboard, you would need to create user accounts for all the users. And they created very simple passwords. Passwords like welcome with the @ symbol or just a couple of numbers thrown at the end.
Help.
Stuff that was extremely easily brute forced.
That was the password for the domain administrator where Don and I used to work.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That was a long time ago.
Help.
It was a good time.
That's it.
That got changed.
Yes, it did.
So basically, they would create a really easy to guess password, and they would assign that same password to every account for that customer. And it didn't expire, and it didn't require being changed when you logged in. So they encourage customers, hey, when you log in, change your password. but you didn't have to. And it turns out a lot of the customers didn't. Well, some attackers figured this out, either by guessing or through insider information. We don't know, but they figured it out, and they were able to then begin compromising LogicMonitor customer accounts. Now, here's why I didn't flag this one as who got pwned, right? We don't really know if they were able to make the jump of getting into the LogicMonitor infrastructure itself.
Yeah.
So, that would compromise all the customers.
At this point, it would just be a customer compromise.
Right. But it's a number of customers, at least 20 of their customers have been affected this way. And this does count as a supply chain hack, though, because once the hackers were able to compromise the LogicMonitor instance for a customer, LogicMonitor requires an agent to be installed on your servers to be able to track application and network performance. That meant the hackers now had usually system level access on those systems, and they were able to push ransomware out, and they infected a number of machines with ransomware. And so those customers were hit through their supply chain, through LogicMonitor. So that's bad.
And that stuff isn't going to get flagged by AV and everything because it's strictly from
System
them.
level.
It is, right.
Yep.
It's allowed software.
So we'll probably find out in the next couple of weeks if the hackers were able to compromise further into LogicMonitor's infrastructure, then this could be a full-scale SolarWinds type event.
Which would suck.
It would.
You know what, though? I think this is a really good article to have the conversation about setting passwords. As someone who does security training, I teach people good security practices. That's my day job. A lot of times I'll get people saying like, you're showing me how to crack a password, but the password you're giving me is very weak. No wonder it got cracked. And I kind of got a little perturbed with that a lot of times because it was like, yes, people, they use bad passwords. And I would get perturbed that they were using weak passwords. Does that make sense? I was like, this is the reality of it. And now the more I've kind of thought about it, the more I'm like, they should be upset that they don't understand that, yes, these are passwords that get used in real life, but they should be upset that these are passwords that we use in real life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Once they put those two things together, they should be completely inflamed with anger, going, what do you mean that this is something we're using in real life? Right. And for whatever reason, it hasn't been like, we've never changed. No matter how much we train and do user awareness, we still tend to lean on, make it easy for me, would you? These password things kind of suck. I have like 30 some odd character passwords. It doesn't really become a real issue for me. Like maybe for the first week, you're kind of getting used to typing your password. Once you do, you type it pretty quickly and it's not a big deal.
And with password managers like things like Bitwarden and things like that, there's really no reason to not have a password that, those randomized ones where it's special characters and stuff. I know that's hard to memorize. But if you've got a password manager that's secure and your password for the password manager isn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's really no reason to not be using longer, more complex passwords.
There's very few legitimate reasons why you would not use such a complex and lengthy password and a password manager. Like, gun to my head, you're not getting into 95% of the things that I have access to.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how. If you don't have my Bitwarden, I'm done.
Well, so that's probably what I think is the biggest flaw here is LogicMonitor, the software itself.
Right.
Because of the nature of what it is, monitoring your infrastructure, that's not something you're giving to Tom, the mail clerk down in the mailroom. This is something that your infrastructure admins will have access to. Yeah. So multi-factor authentication should absolutely be enabled. So who cares if they use a weak password or not? You've got a second factor authentication.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're onboarding, it's a trivial thing to require people to change a password and onboard MFA. I use a number of services where they will not let you log in until you've enabled MFA. You've got to get through that onboarding first before you're in. These are things that you would think a company like LogicMonitor would have thought of, and their customer list is what makes it scary because they have on their website, trusted by Cisco, Juniper, Hewlett-Packard, like huge network companies.
So the question becomes why aren't they doing that? Why are they not doing that?
I have a theory.
Let's hear it.
All right, here's my theory.
I'm interested.
When you go to Daniel and ask about security settings and so on, he's going to tell you how to secure things. That's his business. Daniel is a cybersecurity expert. When you go to Sophie, Sophie, I know you don't consider yourself an expert, but you've been involved in our cybersecurity program for quite some time. And so you've got to secure this and do better. But when a customer goes to LogicMonitor to buy it, they're one of those companies where they don't put the pricing on the website, right? You got to call, you got to talk to a salesperson. So now you get tied to a salesperson, and the salesperson walks you through the great deal you're going to get that, unfortunately, the pricing ends at the end of the month. We got to get this deal signed. Let's get a DocuSign. And then the salesperson oftentimes will onboard the customer because they usually don't get paid their commission until somebody is in their account. Yeah. So the salespeople provision the customer. And this is not just LogicMonitor. There's a lot of companies out there that do this where the salespeople provision the customer. And the salespeople don't know about security or don't view it as important. They're in sales.
Well, they might think, well, this is temporary anyway. You're going to change it, not understanding that most people, inertia is a difficult thing to overcome for most people. Oh, the password's already set. Rock and roll. Just keep going, right? That's good enough.
So you have developers that put an automation in place, and the developers aren't necessarily thinking security first. They're thinking feature first. You have salespeople who are thinking sales first, not security first. So it's up to us, the people that do think about security, to get involved in those processes to make sure that we review them.
Right. Like if all they did was just get a couple of security people involved with like, hey, let's script out how you would onboard a client so that you don't have to kick it over to IT to get them onboarded correctly. You can walk that process. Yeah. And we're going to just give you a nice little script. You just follow the bouncing ball, and here's how that's done. And that way we can increase security. We make it easy on you. But it's unfortunate that it takes something like this before something like that might actually even be thought of to do.
Yeah. Well, a company like LogicMonitor should have a CISO. Yeah. Right? They should have probably a whole security team because they're doing a SaaS-based solution, right. Installing agents in customers' machines. It's high risk. So they should have a CISO. And their CISO should be looking at what are the procedures we have in place? What are our weakest links? Where are areas of possible compromise? And a simple password, and I haven't seen their onboarding, so I would assume it's sent by email, which is unencrypted. And not set to expire, not requiring a change that customers can use. This should have been a red flag that, ultimately the CISO should have been aware of.
Yeah. Well, he'll be fired soon. So, because that's how it works, right? We have a
scapegoat.
We have a security incident. CISO gets fired. Oh, first he goes on, and tells everybody what a bad job they did. And then they fire them, and
and the cycle continues.
We get a CISO, and Jill comes in. She's like, "I'm going to do better than Bill did."
Give her a couple years, and same thing's going to happen.
Yeah, and then she's fired, and then the cycle continues.
I've said this more than once, and I shouldn't, but
no, you're going to say it again.
I will. I'm tripling down on it because I've said it at least twice, which is a CISO's key responsibility is being willing to be fired during a security incident.
That's it. That's it.
Because
it's in the job description.
Because companies look at that as like absolving them of blame.
Right.
Oh,
we
that
took
happened.
Care of it.
We fired the CISO.
Yeah.
Which I just looked up. I believe this gentleman is the CISO. The CISO for them, Senior Vice President of Cybersecurity and CISO for LogicMonitor. Actually, he left in May of 2023.
So they didn't even have a CISO at the time.
They may not have a standing CISO right now.
And then in lies their problem.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Or maybe Google didn't find it. But anyhow.
Yeah. It's probably
we'll see. This one, though, just mark it on your calendar. This one may turn into a SolarWinds type event because of how prevalent this software is in organizations. But it's not there yet. So right now it is just a customer account compromise.
Yeah. For right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have a chief technology officer, but I can't find anything on a CISO. So this is just on their website. I'm probably not scrolling far enough because
CTO's pulling double duty.
Could be.
Maybe.
Yeah.
In a small company, you can do that.
Yeah, but not this one. Yeah. It's a little too large.
They seem, at least on face value, they seem like a really big
employees.
company. Maybe they are. I can't imagine they've landed those big clients with just 4 employees. If so, they're like the most efficient company
I saw a whole
ever.
documentary about a guy who bought the was it New York Islanders with no money.
Oh, the scam.
Yes.
Yeah. My
just
wife
through
told me about
lies.
that. Yeah.
Right. So I put nothing past people anymore. If you can buy a hockey team with no money, and they were interviewing the dude, and they kept like, once they kind of caught on to the fact that you were lying, why did you keep going? He goes, I just wanted to see how far I would go. I just want to see what they would believe. I started making up bigger and more outrageous lies to see if people would believe it, and they did. And I'm like, this is crazy.
Like a movie plot.
Yeah. It's very entertaining. You should check it out.
No kidding.
I don't know how accurate this is. Zoom Info is a reliable site for this kind of data, but I don't have a paid account. So according to them, they have 800 employees, which is a pretty decent size.
Yeah.
That's considered a mid-size organization. So, I don't know.
I mean, they're not Deloitte.
I think because of the nature of the business and the nature of the way their software works, they should obviously have a CISO. They did at some point.
At that size, you got to have one. Yeah.
Well, per TechCrunch, LogicMonitor is making some changes going forward. Kind of reactive as opposed to proactive. It's a little late for that, but better late than never. They are now requiring the setup password to be changed on the first login, and the password only lasts 30 days. So they've implemented some measures. No MFA though, still, as far as I know. So that's interesting that you pointed out earlier that it's surprising that that's not a requirement. Who knows? Maybe in the future.
And that varies by company. You think about our day job, right? Where we don't offer MFA to our customers. But that's because they log into a website to access training. Yeah. If a hacker accesses that, they get access to our training. Yeah. But if it's a software agent installed on your infrastructure, like a whole different thing, you have to evaluate the exposure.
Yeah. The standard's a little bit different there.
I would think.
You would think. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, maybe we'll be covering this again in a few weeks, and they'll be like, update, we're implementing MFA.
Do we have any upload capabilities on our site?
No.
Oh, good.
No. Nope.
Okay. Thank you for double checking on that. We'll go ahead and move on to this next one. This is fun. This comes to us from Ars Technica. It says, hacker gains admin control of Sourcegraph and gives free access to the masses. So it's an unknown hacker at this point, but I bet he fancies himself a regular Robin Hood, doesn't he?
I don't know. Robin Hood would steal money from the rich and give to the poor. So the poor would receive money, which had value to them. They could buy food and make a better life. In this case, the hacker gained access to a generative text AI company called Sourcegraph and gave away access to generative AI functionality, which
to write my resume
really has value to anybody, does
so
it?
I can get a job.
How much is a Sourcegraph API key? You know what I mean? It's like, what's that running me?
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Sourcegraph, by the way, which I was not, it is meet Cody, your AI assistant, auto-generate unit tests, explain code, find code smells, and generate code even. By the way, code smells is an interesting, I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with code smells?
No.
Code smells are, I looked it up.
I know some code stinks.
Code smells are a result of poor or misguided programming. These blips in the application code can often be directly traced to mistakes made by the application programmer during the coding process. So they help you find stupid things you've done. Well, like it just highlighted all of my code.
Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that for the last 3 months, the world has been crazy about ChatGPT and any kind of large language model. And
I've developed a religion.
Yeah.
We pray to ChatGPT. Yeah.
The AI coding assistant is named Cody.
Cody.
That's funny. I like that. I know it's not the point, but I just think that's funny.
And now I'm tempted to do this. To talk to ChatGPT. I'm forming a cult. I need to come up with a set of daily prayers.
Yeah. And what would you want me to do if you were my deity?
Well, with this surge of our new buzzword, right? Everybody has to have ChatGPT. Companies are rushing to get products to market, and they're going as fast as they can to integrate this stuff into everything they have. Well, anytime you rush technology to market, what happens? You cut corners. And security is one of those pretty early on things that companies will cut corners on. Yeah. Like, we don't have time for a pen test.
We will bolt that on later, people.
That's right. It'll take the hackers time to find stuff. We'll have it fixed by then.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, it never happens. So this is a great example of that, where Sourcegraph just popped up a handful of months ago on the public radar. They offer that coding support, which many companies are starting to integrate now. Microsoft is trying to bake it into Visual Studio, and so you're seeing a lot of that. But in this case, the hacker got in. Now, what's interesting to me, at least, is that Robin Hood angle. Most times a hacker gets in and it's like, how can we extort money out of this or whatever? But in his case, what he did, and I don't know why I assume it was a guy, but the hacker in question generated...
Probably because 95% of people that are into technology are...
Well, yeah, I guess there's the demographics there.
Yeah.
But,
it's a safe bet, Don.
But they created a proxy server that basically gave people free access to Sourcegraph's queries. And the way Sourcegraph noticed this was a huge spike in customer activity. And they put out a little chart that shows it, and it doesn't have a scale. Like they didn't give actual numbers, but it's like 2 orders of magnitude greater than, like they went up.
It seems like a lot, Don.
Some 10,000% or whatever over their previous day. I just imagine like being on the network. I'm sure it's a very small company, right?
Yeah.
This is probably less than 20 employees, but they've got somebody who's responsible for their infrastructure, and maybe they noticed their AWS billing alert first, or like that was their alert.
We don't have the money to cover these costs there. What's going on?
Yeah, it's crazy. Just this huge spike in activity. And so they immediately traced it to what was going on. The hacker had gotten a full-blown system administrator account and was able to, like, it could get somebody to sign up for a free account, and they could then remove all of the limits that were set on the free account to basically have unlimited access.
So I don't know if you read the comments in this, but
I did not.
Almost a bunch of them kind of went like this. We've said it before, and they're quoting this. We've said it before, we'll say it again. Don't put credentials in publicly available code.
Oh, was this?
That is what happened here.
Oh, wow.
It's the old putting my access keys in the code.
Oh, man.
Trope.
That happens a surprising amount, right? Developers love GitHub. You can sign up for a free GitHub account and you can put your code in there. And for a long time, unless you're a paid GitHub customer or it was an open source project, they wouldn't let you make private repositories. So you had to pay for private. Yeah. Everything was public. So people would sign up for free accounts, and then they would hard code credentials in their software and sync it up to the GitHub repository. It was such a problem with AWS keys that GitHub actually has an automated system that runs. If you're ever bored, make a fake AWS API key. Like, take yours, change the values, stick it in your code. You will immediately get an email notification from GitHub about it. Like this, that's how prevalent this problem is. I didn't realize that's what they did. Man, that's
how they found the code. So they pushed that key into like a public piece of code. And I don't think they meant to do that. I think that was an accident, which it typically is. But it's very common practice because for coders, it makes things a lot easier for them to just bake that in. It doesn't have to call or even to do some of the things to obfuscate that. It can just be a bad habit between coders. Hey, maybe they should go use what's the thing called again? What's the name of this
LogicMonitor?
Yeah.
Oh, this one is Sourcegraph.
Yeah, Sourcegraph. They should have used Sourcegraph to look for
maybe
these bad coding practices.
I've actually seen something like this happen before by accident.
Yeah.
Where there was a developer. I'll change the names to protect the innocent, although he was totally guilty.
Yeah.
So a developer where they had I'll call it a Unix profile because it was done on their Mac, but they used this on Linux and on their Mac and so on, where they had their aliases set up for their bash sessions and they had all sorts of commands mapped and functions and other things that they created. And they like to have that on every server they worked on, right? So when they'd get a new account on a server, they'd log in and they'd want to sync their .profile, their .bash RC, all of those files. So what they did is they created a GitHub repo and they synced their home directory up to this GitHub repo, thinking, what's the big deal? If somebody gets my bash RC file, they just get my command aliases. That doesn't tell them anything. And if they get my profile, they get, stuff like my Vim configurations and nothing big.
But if I set like an environmental variable with an API key in it.
Well, so this was actually, they didn't do that.
Oh, thank God.
So that was good. But they did sync their whole directory. And so their history file went along with it.
Ooh.
And with the AWS command line interface, there are plenty of times where you provide your API key as a part of a command line command, and it was in the history file.
Sweet.
And so they synced up what they thought was innocent data into a repo, and here go the API keys with all the information an attacker needs, because you've got all your endpoints and stuff in there, all in your command history. And that developer had never thought about that. Like, hey, my command history contains absolutely sensitive data in it.
Yeah.
And
gotta redirect that to dev null.
What are you going to do? You could disable your history.
Yep.
Right. But history provides a useful function.
Helpful, yes.
you should just not sync it to GitHub. That's one. And,
you
don't
can probably
assume.
script up a filter pretty easily, right? Right? Like any kind of this type of data goes to dev null, everything else can stay in my history.
Yeah.
So you kind of like create a script that looks for what you've labeled sensitive information and kind of removes that for you.
Personally, I mean, I would have been hesitant to sync my home directory up to a public GitHub repo.
Yeah.
Just because, today I might not have anything important in there, but, maybe a month from now, I am temporarily working with a CSV and it gets synced up and that CSV could have all sorts of crazy data in it. Who knows? So it's just a high risk thing, but people can make accidents. This, I don't think was an accident, just maybe a lack of knowledge.
It happens. Hey, listen, when Sophie and I were doing AWS pen testing series, I was like, oh man, I'm using my own AWS instances and everything. And all of my information is kind of pumping to the screen. And I'm like, I mean, our editors can handle this, but I feel like I could probably handle this myself pretty quickly, and then we ain't got to worry about it. So I created a script. What did I call that thing?
Raid. Remove account ID.
Yeah, that's right. Removed all my account IDs.
Just
and
X's.
Just put a bunch of X's.
Oh, cool.
And obfuscated it. So I could run commands normally, as long as I ran raid first, and then it could do all my AWS commands. Everything that came out of the screen would be sanitized.
Nice.
Yeah, and it made it really easy for us to be able. Yeah, it was really cool.
We've got a good editing team.
Yeah,
and so I'm sure they could have blurred it out or whatever, but they could also make a mistake. They're humans.
That's true.
And it just takes that key getting out one time.
Right. Automation made that really easy. Yeah. So yeah, a little testing goes along.
Plus, it lightens their workload.
Yeah,
and they don't have to worry about it. It's nice of you. You're being a nice guy.
I do what I can. It literally took me like maybe 45 minutes to whip that up.
Yeah.
Right.
For real.
Yeah. I didn't say I was good at it.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. I just said I could do it. Listen, you get the main thing running, and then you go, oh, it didn't do the thing I thought it was supposed to do there. Why did it not do that? And you go, oh, I'm an idiot. That's why.
Did you open source it so other people could use it?
It's in my GitHub repo. Yep.
And in your examples in the
totally
documentation, did you put your key and then show it sanitized?
I think I put your key goes here. Do not make this public.
Yeah, make it real obvious for me.
I think it would be funnier if you put a real key in there.
I've got to go look at my GitHub repo right now.
Get a double check.
Let's see what I did there. GitHub.com.
Good times.
/ Daniel Lowry.
Yeah. So if you're working at Sourcegraph today, I guess let's do a positive spin on this.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, did your customer lead list just grow, right? Like, here's a whole, you've got 10 times the potential customers on your plate today if you reach out to them with a promo code.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Go to the code.
Did you find it?
Yeah, I got it right here. There you go. I just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. That kind
Lame.
of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
A fake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if you are a patron of Sourcegraph and enjoy the free stuff while it lasts, right? But, you were talking earlier about how you can use Google and Google Docs and all that, and it's free, but not really because they're getting your information. It sounds like there may have been, the hackers could have accessed personal information when this happened. So maybe you're getting the stuff for free, but not really.
Yeah.
You're trading something else for it. Your mother's maiden name or something like that.
Something
Probably
like
something
that.
more valuable.
It's the new economy. We trade in information. Money's stupid.
Oh, brave new world. I'm so excited to be a part of it. Well, I think that's going to do it for our articles. I do want to remind y'all that Technado is sponsored by ACI Learning, the people behind IT Pro. So if you're listening from the Technado website, you can click on that sponsored by button. It's a big orange button, hard to miss. And you click that to go to the IT Pro website. If you want to support the podcast, check out those courses. Daniel mentioned an AWS cloud pen testing course that we did. That was part of our training there. That's what we do in our day job, and we love it. So if you want to support the podcast, check those out. Again, you can use that code Technado30 to get a discount on your IT Pro membership. You can also check out ACI Learning's webinars and live on social events. We've got one coming up this week. All things cybersecurity. John Hammond is going to be our guest, so we're super excited about that. That'll be Daniel and I doing that this Thursday at 2 p.m., I believe.
Yeah, he's become like a third regular host, hasn't he?
He really has. I think this
out with John.
this is like the second or third time we've done something with him.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get to see him at Wild West Hack and Fest, right?
He will be there.
You will be there.
With bells on.
With
If he
with
doesn't
bells
have
on.
the bells, I will bring bells just in case so that
Just
I'm
in
not a
case.
liar. Like, John, hold these.
Yeah. That's Daniel, always prepared.
That's right.
So we'll see John Hammond at Wild West Hack and Fest as well, and we will be there. Daniel and I, as well as some of the other folks from ACI Learning. That's going to be in October in Deadwood, South Dakota. We will be filming a Technado live from there, so that'll be pretty cool, and we might even get the chance to interview some pretty awesome folks that will be in attendance at Wild West Hack and Fest. So stay tuned. We'll have more updates on that as we get closer to the event, but it's coming up fast. I mean, it's already first week of September, and it's going to be here before we know it, so I'm pretty excited. Other than that, I think that's going to do it for me unless I'm forgetting anything.
You probably are.
I probably am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll make fun of you for it.
What a vote of confidence. Appreciate
It'll be
that.
in your employee review.
It'll be, that's coming up fast too.
So one of your KPIs was not forgetting anything on Technado.
I would have been out of here a long time ago if that was the case. I forget a lot of things. It's just, there's only so much I can hold up here.
That's true.
Well, that's going to do it then for our show today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.